Right, well, National Review columnist Andrew McCarthy is slamming the Justice Department's prosecution of a guy named Douglas Mackey, who goes by Ricky Vaughn online. In a recent op-ed, McCarthy writes, quote, "In a sane world, Mackey's sleazy conduct would be shrugged off as political dirty tricks, unethical and dishonest, but not a federal crime. Leave it to the DOJ's would-be legislator lawyers, though, to try and turn it into one." Now, Mackey was arrested in Florida last week on federal election interference charges, for which he now faces 10 years in prison. Now, keep in mind, this is all around some memes he sent out before the 2016 election. Mackey allegedly conspired with 4 unnamed Twitter users to dupe people, particularly minority voters, into casting invalid votes by social media or text messages. To talk more about this case and this infringement on our First Amendment, let's welcome in now Howie Carr, host of The Howie Carr Show. Howie, great to talk to you.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
Also, Howie's the author of What Really Happened, How Donald J. Trump Saved America from Hillary Clinton. And at least maybe for 4 years from ridiculous prosecutions like this one, because you can see here clearly, Howie, that the DOJ is going back in time to try and relitigate the 2016 election. They believe that this Ricky Vaughn guy is guilty of federal elections violations because he posted some memes. And now we're going to prosecute people, put them in prison for 10 years potentially because they sent out some stuff on the internet?
I know it's ridiculous. This is something. It reads like an April Fool's Day joke. This was again 2016. He put out a tweet saying you could, if you're a Hillary voter, you don't have to go to the polls. You can text your vote in, you can tweet it out, or you can post it on Facebook. I mean, it's obviously absurd. Only apparently 4,900 people saw it. This was in New York State. Hillary won the state by almost 2 million votes. And these press releases that are put out by the Justice Department, they're saying that they engaged in voter theft. They did, but there are no charges on the complaint of voter theft. They say they defrauded citizens. There's no use of the F word, fraud, in the indictment, and it's announced by a new hire under the Biden administration, a guy by the name of Nicholas McQuaid, who apparently comes out of a law firm that according to some reports, is one of the principals is representing Hunter Biden. and again, the other thing, John, is it happens just a couple of days after the crooked FBI lawyer Kevin Kleinsmith has pleaded guilty to altering a official document from the CIA in order to surveil one of Donald Trump's aides, Carter Page. He pleaded guilty to obstructing justice, basically. They didn't give him time.
Right. Yeah, we talked about this with George Papadopoulos, who actually went to prison for the investigation that we now know was fraudulent because of this FBI's plea. And Howie, you know this too from reading many criminal complaints and press releases from the FBI. It's like kind of like a news story. The lead sentence really tells you a lot about the case. And I'm going to read from the press release here and see if this makes any sense to the folks at home. A Florida man was arrested this morning on charges of conspiring with others in advance of the 2016 U.S. presidential election to use various social media platforms to disseminate misinformation designed to deprive individuals of their constitutional right to vote. What does that mean? I mean, 10 years in prison for sending out stuff over Twitter, and they're going after this guy and not going after the social media sites.
Right, and then and Kevin Kleinsmith gets a total pass when he alters a document that was filed under oath to a secret criminal court. You know, I thought about this, John. This is like, you know, when you were a kid, they always just say, you'd call a tobacco shop and you'd say, "Do you have Prince Albert in a can?" They go, "Yes." And they say, "Let him out." So, I mean, so you could, theoretically, I guess you could charge the kid with wire fraud. That's what the level of these jokes was. It's just nonsense.
You're talking to a guy, Howie, who came up in the time of the Jerky Boys. Before caller ID. So I'm not going to incriminate myself here. The statute of limitations has long since expired on my youthful indiscretion when it comes to prank phone calls. But you're absolutely right. And we start to see this now. And if you don't, you know, look, what Mackey did and what he put out on social media is a little disgusting, or a lot disgusting, really. But we're going to start criminalizing speech here. And this is just one example. And if we don't stop it, it's a pretty slippery slope.
Yeah, and it's like graffiti. You know, in certain areas they say, "Oh, it's not vandalism, it's art." I mean, this guy could claim he's a performance artist, right? Under those standards.
If the goal of performance art is to elicit a response, he certainly did that. And you know, the funny thing too is how Democrats will say, "Oh, it's not really election fraud if it doesn't change the outcome of the election. And here we have an example of them prosecuting somebody for, ostensibly election fraud. And you mentioned it. Changed maybe 4,000 votes.
Yeah.
She won by 1.8 million votes in the state of New York.
Yeah.
So not consequential here. It is definitely a head scratcher. Thanks for your time, Howie. We'll see you on the radio.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.